Shortly before his tragic death, President Abraham Lincoln experienced a deeply disturbing dream that haunted his final days on Earth. In the dream, he heard distant sounds of mournful weeping and many people crying loudly in the White House hallways. He decided to investigate these very sorrowful noises and walked slowly toward the east room of the presidential mansion. Inside, he found a simple funeral bier and many people gazing upon the deceased person with profound, heartbreaking sadness. He asked a nearby soldier who had died, to which the soldier replied, "The president, he was assassinated." Lincoln woke up quite abruptly from this vivid nightmare and found himself completely unable to fall back asleep that night. He later shared this ominous premonition with his beloved wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, just a few days before his death. This prophetic dream seemed like a final warning of the impending dark doom that would very soon befall him surely. Such dreams and strange omens were frequently noted and discussed during the highly superstitious times of the 19th century. We must look back at his entire life to fully understand how this incredibly humble man reached such great heights. In the early 1800s, the young United States was expanding rapidly, but facing a deeply embedded moral and political crisis. The core of this intense conflict was the institution of slavery, which existed primarily in the agricultural southern states. Northern states were industrializing quickly, and many citizens there increasingly opposed the spread of slavery into new Western territories. Southern politicians strongly defended slavery as essential for their economy and argued for the right to govern their own affairs. The country was becoming dangerously divided along geographic and ideological lines, leading to frequent compromises that rarely satisfied everyone. Abolitionists in the North worked tirelessly to end slavery, publishing newspapers and helping enslaved people escape via secret networks. Meanwhile, westward expansion forced difficult decisions about whether new states would allow or prohibit slavery within their borders. Congress passed acts like the Missouri Compromise to maintain a fragile balance between free and slave states for decades. This unresolved tension over human bondage was creating a volatile political landscape that would soon erupt into violent conflict. Into this unstable and deeply fractured nation, Abraham Lincoln was born, destining him to confront these existential challenges. Abraham Lincoln entered the world on February 12, 1809, in a small, crude log cabin in backwoods Kentucky. His parents, Thomas and Nancy Hanks Lincoln, were very poor, hard-working pioneers struggling to survive on the rugged frontier. Life on the American frontier was incredibly demanding, requiring constant labor, self-sufficiency, and resilience from every family member. Young Abraham, known as Abe, spent his early childhood years performing grueling farm work and chores every single day. His family moved several times, first to Indiana and later to Illinois, seeking better land and opportunities for survival. In Indiana, tragedy struck early when his beloved mother Nancy died when Abe was just 9 years old, breaking his heart. Despite limited access to formal education, Lincoln possessed a powerful, insatiable thirst for knowledge from a very young age. He walked miles to borrow books and would eagerly read by the meager firelight after working long days in the fields. His stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, strongly encouraged his reading habits and became a source of great affection and support. These formidable frontier experiences instilled in young Lincoln a strong work ethic, perseverance, and great physical and mental toughness. As a young adult, Lincoln left his family farm to find his own way, exploring various jobs and opportunities. He worked on a flatboat transporting goods down the Mississippi River to the busy port city of New Orleans. In New Orleans, he witnessed a slave auction, an experience that deeply disturbed him and shaped his lifelong views. Lincoln later settled in New Salem, Illinois, where he worked as a store clerk, postmaster, and surveyor simultaneously. He gained popularity for his honesty, sharp wit, and captivating storytelling, which made him a respected figure in town. He taught himself law by reading legal books, eventually earning his license to practice law in Illinois. He began his political career by serving in the Illinois state legislature, representing the Whig Party for several years. In 1842, he married Mary Todd, who came from a prominent, wealthy Kentucky family, and they settled in Springfield. Lincoln became a successful lawyer, gaining a reputation for his skilled logic, persuasive arguments, and fairness in court. His ambitions eventually led him to run for a seat in the United States House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. The 1860 presidential election was one of the most critical and contentious turning points in American history. Lincoln emerged as the Republican Party's candidate, opposing the expansion of slavery while Southern states vehemently threatened secession. The Democratic Party split over the issue of slavery, with different candidates representing Northern and Southern factions separately. Lincoln won the presidency without carrying a single Southern state, which deeply alarmed and angered Southern political leaders. Following his victory, South Carolina became the first state to officially secede from the Union in December 1860. 6 more Southern states quickly followed, forming the Confederate States of America before Lincoln even took office. As president-elect, Lincoln faced an unprecedented national crisis, receiving numerous death threats while traveling to Washington, D.C. He was forced to sneak into the capital city at night to ensure his safety before his inauguration. In his first inaugural address, he pleaded for unity, stating he had no intention of ending slavery where it existed. But he also firmly declared that secession was legally void, and he would enforce federal laws in all states. The fragile peace shattered completely on April 12, 1861, when Confederate forces fired upon Fort Sumter in South Carolina. This attack marked the official beginning of the American Civil War, the deadliest conflict in the nation's entire history. President Lincoln quickly called for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion, which prompted 4 more states to secede. The war pitted families against each other, with brothers often fighting on opposing sides in this bitter, bloody struggle. General Robert E. Lee took command of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, proving to be a brilliant military strategist. The Union Army, though larger and better equipped, struggled initially, suffering several major, devastating defeats early in the war. Lincoln desperately needed a major military victory to boost Northern morale and provide momentum for his planned political actions. The Battle of Antietam in September 1862, though a bloody stalemate, gave him the opportunity he awaited so patiently. Following the victory at Antietam, Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, a truly bold and revolutionary step. This conflict would profoundly test Lincoln's leadership and the very survival of the United States as a unified nation. On January 1, 1863, President Lincoln signed the final Emancipation Proclamation, fundamentally altering the war's purpose. This historic document declared that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territories were thenceforward, and forever free. While it didn't free enslaved people in border states, it redefined the Civil War as a moral crusade against slavery. It also authorized the recruitment of African American soldiers, who eagerly joined the Union Army to fight for freedom. Internationally, the proclamation made it politically impossible for Britain and France to support the Confederacy. Many in the North celebrated this moral stand, while others, including Northern Democrats, criticized Lincoln harshly for the decision. In November 1863, Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address at the dedication of a national cemetery in Pennsylvania. His brief but powerful speech redefined the American democracy, emphasizing a government of by and for the people. Through these decisive actions, Lincoln ensured that a Union victory would also bring an end to slavery in America. The Emancipation Proclamation stands as his greatest and most lasting contribution to the cause of human freedom. While the Civil War raged, a small group of Confederate sympathizers in Washington, D.C. began plotting against the Union government. The conspiracy was led by a well-known, charismatic stage actor named John Wilkes Booth, a fiery advocate for Southern rights. Initially, Booth planned to kidnap President Lincoln and hold him hostage to exchange for Confederate prisoners of war. Their plans changed dramatically after Lincoln's re-election and the imminent collapse of the Confederacy in early 1865. Following Lee's surrender in April, a desperate Booth decided to assassinate Lincoln, along with Vice President Johnson and Secretary Seward. Booth learned that Lincoln would be attending a play at Ford's Theater on the evening of Good Friday, April 14th. He carefully coordinated the attacks with his fellow conspirators, assigning each a specific high-ranking target that fatal night. While Booth was an expert on Ford's Theater's layout, his accomplices were less prepared and far more hesitant in their assignments. Booth envisioned himself as a hero for the Southern cause, believing his act would somehow revive the Confederate rebellion. But his brutal plan would only result in tragedy, ending a great leader's life and forever changing American history. On the evening of April 14, 1865, President Lincoln and his wife Mary Todd arrived at Ford's Theater. They were attended by 2 guests and seated in the decorated presidential box, high above the main stage. The play, a popular comedy called Our American Cousin, was underway and the audience was enjoying the performance immensely. John Wilkes Booth arrived at the theater, used his celebrity status to access the back, and waited for his moment. Taking advantage of the play's loudest laugh line, Booth slipped into the unguarded presidential box completely unnoticed. He fired a single shot from his Derringer pistol into the back of Lincoln's head at point-blank range. Major Henry Rathbone, a guest in the box, immediately grappled with Booth, but was severely slashed with a knife. Booth then famously leaped from the box onto the stage below, shouting "Sic Semper Tyrannis," before fleeing the scene. Chaos erupted throughout the theater as doctors in the audience rushed to the presidential box to provide medical aid. The mortally wounded president was carried to a house across the street, where he would die early the next morning. Abraham Lincoln passed away on April 15, 1865, but his impact on the United States and the world remains profound. He successfully navigated the country through its greatest moral, constitutional, and military crisis, preserving the American Union from collapse. His decisive leadership and the Emancipation Proclamation began the long, difficult process of ending slavery in the United States. Lincoln is revered for his honesty, humble origins, exceptional rhetorical skill, and his steadfast commitment to democratic principles. He is consistently ranked by historians and citizens as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, American presidents. His image adorns the US $5 bill and the penny, embedding his presence in the daily lives of all Americans. The Gettysburg Address continues to be recited and studied worldwide as one of the definitive statements on democracy and equality. His life story, from a log cabin to the White House, remains a powerful symbol of opportunity and the American dream. He remains an inspiration to countless leaders and individuals around the world who are fighting for freedom, equality, and justice. Abraham Lincoln's enduring legacy is that of a savior of the Union, a great emancipator, and a truly great man.